Hey guys, tonight we travel back to the vast, sun-drenched expanse of the Achaemenid Empire, yes, the ancient Persian superstate of golden thrones, silk-swirled corridors, and, surprisingly, an imperial obsession with smelling really good. You're standing now in the grand audience hall of Persepolis, where pillars soar like petrified trees and sunlight spills across tiled floors in perfect silence. But it's not the sight that overwhelms you, it's the scent. Warm tendrils of saffron, sandalwood, rosewater, and musk wrap around your senses like a velvet curtain. Every breath tastes like a poem, and you suddenly realize, no one here stinks of sweat. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in this world. Not because of the political intrigue or scorpion-infested deserts, but because you forgot to dab on the right blend of cinnamon and lotus oil before entering court. Fashion faux pas? No, more like diplomatic disaster. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing this sleepy little community stretch across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle forward into the perfumed haze. It's 500 BCE, and Cyrus the Great's descendants are ruling from their lavish palaces, sprawling across 3 continents. This is an empire built on military might, engineering brilliance, and the strategic use of scent. Because in Persia, perfume isn't just decoration. It's infrastructure, it's politics, it's religious ceremony, medical treatment, even warfare. It's not just nice, it's necessary. You're guided down a hall by a silent servant who smells faintly of vetiver and dates. His scent is subtle, just enough to say palace staff, not nobility. Even among the servants, olfactory hierarchy matters. The king? He smells like 10 kinds of flour and 3 regional spices that had to be imported on camelback from 2,000 miles away. Scent is curated like a signature. You learn quickly. Nobles commission custom blends that say, I support the satrap of Lydia, or I'm definitely not plotting a coup, and they wear it like armor. A whiff of the wrong musk could mark you as either a barbarian or an upstart. Historians still argue whether these perfumes were worn primarily as status symbols or had deeper, ritual significance. But the reality was likely both, social theater and sacred gesture woven into one elegant bottle of spikenard oil. You're ushered into a smaller chamber now, still fragrant, but more grounded. A priest is chanting softly over a bronze burner that sends up coils of frankincense smoke. The air is thick and heady, as if time itself has slowed down. This is where policy meets piety. Because in Persian royal ideology, scent bridges the human and the divine. In Zoroastrian rituals, aromatic substances like myrrh and saffron are burned to purify space and attract divine attention. You don't just say prayers, you scent them. The soul, after all, is delicate. And nothing lures a celestial being quite like the smell of roasted cardamom in rose oil. The king, called the King of Kings, is considered divinely favored. His body is bathed in perfumed oils every morning, both for hygiene and symbolic preparation. You imagine yourself in his sandals, awoken by harp music, handed a robe soaked in orange blossom extract, and massaged with almond oil as officials wait to read petitions at your feet. Honestly, it's a better wake-up routine than most of us manage. But perfumes aren't only for kings. You pass courtiers, scribes, even visiting Greek envoys, each trailing their own olfactory resume. Scents are used to forge alliances. There's talk of a regional governor who once gifted an amphora of Egyptian jasmine oil to secure a grain deal. Diplomacy by fragrance. It's like LinkedIn but with sandalwood. Even the palace itself is designed to smell good. Windows are strategically placed to catch the breeze and waft incense across state halls. Courtyards grow aromatic herbs, not for cooking, but for ambience. And ceiling hangings are regularly soaked in rosewater to refresh the air. And here's a fun detail. Some clay tablets from the time suggest that officials kept records not just of what taxes were collected, but of what smells were sent as tribute. A chest of cinnamon bark from India, a brick of ambergris from Arabia, One unlucky satrap supposedly sent mint instead of mastic and got a very polite royal scolding. Of course, no story about ancient Persia would be complete without a bit of debate. Scholars still puzzle over a certain line in Xenophon's Cyropedia that describes Persian nobles carrying small scent pouches beneath their robes. Was this decorative? Practical? A subtle method of signaling court allegiance? No one can quite agree, but you're starting to understand how complex this world of smell really is. You pause now in a quiet side chamber. Velvet drapes, a silver ewer, petals floating in warm water. It's the queen's perfumery, you're told. Here, women of the court blend their own secret formulas, passing recipes down generations like royal heirlooms. One blend contains crushed peach kernel, blue lotus, and a drop of resin from a tree that only grows near the Caspian Sea. The recipe? Still a mystery. And as the palace quiets into twilight, the air changes again. Evening oils are burned, lighter, floral, dreamier. It's time for poetry recitals, slow music, political whispers over sugared wine. And all of it, takes place inside a choreography of scent so delicate and layered you almost forget the weight of empire pressing against the marble walls. You slip out of the perfumed palace and into the teeming city below, where things smell a bit less curated. Still, even in the bustling streets of ancient Susa, scent governs the rhythm of daily life, and surprisingly, your social status might be clearer through your smell than your clothing. You're walking now past stalls piled high with dried fruits, textiles, and small jars of oily perfumes sealed with wax. Street vendors shout in Elamite and Old Persian, their calls mingling with the sharp aroma of cumin, dried fish, and something sweet you can't quite place. Perhaps clove and honey drifting from a baker's stall. A man passes you, and instinctively you sniff. Rose oil with just a hint of turmeric. A merchant, most likely. Wealthy, but not nobility. His servant, trailing behind, smells only faintly of ash and soaproot. Lower class, likely just off bathing duty. That's the thing, before you speak a word, people here already know who you are, or think they do. In ancient Persia, the idea that everyone ought to smell appropriate to their station isn't just a snobbish whim. It's woven into the moral fabric of society. Cleanliness and fragrance are associated with spiritual purity, especially under Zoroastrian influence. Body odor? That's not just unpleasant. It's impure, suspicious, potentially unholy. You duck into a small shop, more of a perfumer stall, really. The proprietor, an elderly man with ink-stained fingers, grins as he grinds something in a stone bowl. He's working on a low-cost blend for city officials. Cinnamon bark, coriander, and a few drops of bitter almond oil. It's meant to project wisdom and authority without seeming flashy. He shows you a pricier bottle, wrapped in dyed silk. This one's for a bride, lilac, saffron, a pinch of ambergris. He lets you sniff. It's intoxicating. You consider asking for a sample, but remember this is a society where perfume can cost more than a goat. Historians still argue whether perfume regulations existed formally. Some suspect laws governed how much or what type of scent someone could wear based on class, but we've yet to find concrete legal records. Still, the cultural expectation is strong enough to feel like law. Wearing a noble's blend when you're a baker? Social suicide. Showing up to temple smelling of nothing at all? Practically heresy. You keep walking through the bazaar, where perfume sellers do brisk business. They don't just sell bottles, they sell identities. One promises to make you smell like a Babylonian scholar, with notes of fig leaf and cedar. Another swears her musk blend is favored by palace guards. For confidence and calm. You chuckle at the marketing, but then again, who doesn't want to smell like a philosopher-warrior hybrid? You wander past a public garden now, and it hits you. Even public spaces are perfumed. Scented water trickles from bronze fountains. Trees are chosen not just for beauty, but fragrance. Tamarisk, citrus, and jasmine vines trained to bloom near benches. It's part civic planning, part subtle propaganda. You feel soothed, elevated, vaguely compliant. Even funerals in Persia involve scent. You watch a slow procession where mourners carry incense burners. The departed, washed with rosewater, anointed with precious oils, wrapped in cloth infused with hyacinth and myrrh. The idea is to carry a pleasant essence into the afterlife, to appeal to the divine, yes, but also to leave the right impression with the living. Of course, not everyone has access to fine oils and exotic resins. The lower classes make do with herb bundles, floral waters, and, in some rural areas, smoke baths, standing in aromatic smoke as a sort of spiritual deodorant. You try one at a roadside inn. It's smoky, spicy, oddly comforting, and leaves your tunic smelling like barbecue for the rest of the day. One traveler tells you a strange rumor, that in certain courts, elite women wore perfume not on their bodies, but on small animals, perfumed cats or lapdogs whose fur held expensive oils. Fashion? Statement? Living diffuser? Historians remain deeply confused and a little amused. As night falls, you return to the palace district. The air grows heavier again, thick with the nightly blends of lily and vetiver. You can now tell who is coming around a corner just by the breeze they carry with them. You pause to reflect. This world doesn't just use scent. It's built on it. You can lose a job, win a lover, insult a priest, or sue the king, all with a few drops of liquid on your wrist. It's as if fragrance itself is a kind of language, one you're just beginning to understand. You awaken, if one can awaken in a dreamlike stroll through ancient Persia, to the rustle of silk and the warm light of dawn filtering through latticework screens. The palace is stirring, but not with noise, with ritual. And as you shuffle behind a sandalwood-scented curtain, you're granted a rare privilege. Witnessing the royal fragrance ceremony that begins each day starts not with the king, but with the room. Yes, the room itself is perfumed before the monarch even sets foot inside. A team of attendants lights shallow brass braziers at each corner of the chamber. They toss in delicate pinches of saffron threads, crushed rose petals, cardamom, and benzoin resin, which sizzles quietly as it liquefies in the heat. The air begins to hum with scent, sweet, resinous, almost holy. And just when the balance is right, the attendants nod. Time to wake the king. You follow the procession into his chambers. He lies beneath embroidered linens, flanked by carved ivory panels and a mural of Ahura Mazda watching from a heavenly burst of gold. And yet, what really marks this man as royal isn't the gold or the guards. It's the fragrance already clinging to the hem of his bedclothes. His personal scent blend is legendary, allegedly composed of more than 30 ingredients, including rare blue lotus oil and oud from Indian forests. It's applied daily by a master perfumer who knows the formula better than his own children's birthdays. The king stretches and the ritual begins. First, his body is washed in warm water infused with lime flower and honey, then dried with linen steeped in rose water. Oils are warmed over a flame, never too hot, and massaged into his skin from head to toe. Frankincense for clarity, myrrh for protection, and a touch of cinnamon bark for virility. You can't help but feel awkward, standing in the corner, watching a man be scented like a very powerful pastry. Historians still argue whether these rituals were truly daily or reserved for special occasions, but textual evidence suggests that the Persian court placed enormous value on fragrance as a display of divine favor and imperial strength. In essence, if the king smelled celestial, perhaps he was. Once perfumed, he dresses, robes that are themselves lightly soaked in violet and mint extracts, and heads to the public audience hall. There, dozens wait. Diplomats, generals, poets, foreign guests. And though they speak no common language, one unspoken question lingers in the air. What does he smell like today? You drift into the line of observers, catching the scents of other courtiers. Some wear blends that flatter the king's own subtle mimicry, intended to build rapport. Others choose complementary notes, showing loyalty without sycophancy. And some, often the bolder military types, wear sharp, spicy perfumes that clash, as if daring the room to notice. But no one outsmells the king. That would be suicidal. One scholar beside you whispers that during the reign of Darius I, fragrance was such a mark of favor that he would send custom perfumes as political gifts, part olive branch, part status symbol. A single vial could be worth more than a horse. Receiving it meant you were in the king's inner circle. Not receiving one, well, you'd start sniffing around for conspiracies. The ceremony continues. The king listens, gestures, nods. All the while, his perfumed presence dominates the chamber. Not aggressively, but undeniably. It's the olfactory version of holding court. You learn of another custom. When a new province was brought under Persian rule, the king's perfumer would send a scent representative of the capital to be burned in the new governor's palace. A gentle way of saying, "Welcome to the empire. Please smell accordingly." Back in the private chambers, a different ritual begins, this time with the queen and her entourage. Their perfumes are more floral, with powdery iris and sweet almond oils. One blend, you're told, is based on an ancient recipe linked to the goddess Anahita, protector of water, fertility, and all things beautiful. Wearing her perfume was considered both homage and subtle prayer. It's not all sacred, of course. Some court ladies have been known to use perfume politically, adding just a drop more of clove or musk before walking past a particular nobleman. Court gossip, often built on who smelled like whom. You move now into the perfumery chambers themselves, a shadowy corridor lined with stone jars, copper stills, and tightly lidded crates from across the empire. Here, women and eunuchs craft the blends with astonishing precision. The raw ingredients are logged like jewels, weighed, and recorded in wax tablets. Mistakes aren't just embarrassing, they're political liabilities. You lean close to one workstation, where a young apprentice is nervously mixing drops of neroli and pomegranate flower. She's working on a batch meant for a festival honoring Mitra. If the scent is too weak, the gods might be insulted. Too strong, and courtiers might fall asleep mid-offering. You smile. In this world, even your nose has religious responsibilities. Finally, as the morning sun climbs and the king prepares for council, an attendant enters carrying a small brazier filled with burning galbanum and juniper. He paces slowly, letting the smoke curl around the room, cleansing it one final time before decisions are made. You realize the empire doesn't just smell good for pleasure. It smells good for power. You're wandering through the palace gardens now, following a faint trail of citrus and wet earth. The sun is high, filtering through rows of date palms and apricot trees. Somewhere behind a hedge, a bird shrieks indignantly, possibly at your clumsy attempt to imitate the local custom of walking silently through perfumed spaces. Here, even footsteps are judged for grace. You pause by a tiled fountain. The water is cold and faintly scented, steeped with orange blossoms. This isn't just for show. In the Persian court, fragrance is infused into everything. Water for washing, wine for drinking, even the ink used in royal decrees. You imagine a noble unrolling a scroll and pausing, not at the text, but to inhale the rose and clove laced into the parchment. Important decisions deserve a lovely bouquet. After all, just past the reflecting pool lies your destination. The ceremonial scent vault. Sounds dramatic. And it is. The vault is guarded by two men with expressionless faces and very well-groomed beards. They open the bronze door with a hiss, and you're hit with a dense wave of everything. It's as if the entire empire decided to hold its breath in here. Inside, stone shelves are stacked with amphorae and sealed pots, each labeled with elegant old Persian script. You don't need to read it to know what you're looking at. You smell it. Frankincense from Oman, balsam from Gilead, civet from East Africa, turmeric from the industry. This is a scent library, part treasury, part arsenal. These are the ingredients that build diplomacy, seduce allies, and declare divine favor without a single sword. You run your hand over a small alabaster vial. The attendant tells you it contains a thunder blend, used only during celestial events or royal births. Its components are unknown, likely forgotten deliberately. One whiff and you feel the back of your throat warm, your head swim. You cough once. The guards don't blink. Historians still debate whether the Persians had true royal scent codes, specific blends reserved only for monarchs and banned for public use, but contemporary references hint at severe punishments for olfactory impersonation. In short, smell like the king without permission, and you might disappear from the court permanently. At a corner shelf, you see jars of less exotic materials: crushed iris root, saffron threads, and dried violets. The attendant chuckles and tells you these are part of the daily rotation, used to perfume coins. You blink. Coins? Indeed. In high ceremonies, gold and silver coins were sometimes soaked briefly in scented water before being handed to guests or tossed in rituals. The message was subtle but clear. Even our money smells better than yours. You emerge from the vault slightly dizzy and very hungry. Fortunately, you're just in time for the midday feast. Long, low tables stretch across a shaded courtyard. You sit cross-legged among nobles, scribes, and military advisors. As trays of spiced lamb, barley flatbreads, and pomegranate stews appear, you notice something peculiar. Every dish is perfumed. Not just spiced, perfumed. The rice is laced with rosewater and cardamom. The yogurt sauce has a faint trace of mint oil. Even the wine tastes faintly of cinnamon and violets. It's delicious, strange, and deeply intentional. One noble leans over and confides, "A meal without scent is a day wasted." He may be drunk, but the court seems to agree. In fact, there are rumors, quiet ones, that a chef was once banished for oversmoking a fish and disrupting the scent harmony of a state dinner. Harsh? Maybe. But in a world where political alliances rise and fall on who smells how, a badly cooked meal might actually be a declaration of war. As the meal ends, servants bring out perfumed cloths for guests to wipe their hands. You choose one with jasmine and sandalwood. The heat of your palms releases the scent slowly, like a polite exhale. You suddenly realize how deeply integrated fragrance is, not a flourish, but a system, a language, a ritual, a spell. You overhear a visiting dignitary mention that back in Lydia, their royal court attempted a similar scent diplomacy model but failed. "Too heavy on musk," he says, grimacing. You nod wisely as if you're now an expert. One official mentions a curious experiment. Persian generals were once given signature scent blends to wear during negotiations or before battle speeches. The theory? That their scent would become associated with strength and calm, olfactory branding, long before corporate logos. Historians still debate the effectiveness, but it's a charming image. A warrior dabbing on rose and saffron before battle like a nervous date. As the sun dips low, casting the garden in gold, a flute begins to play. The nobles lie back on cushions. Scented smoke coils from shallow bowls, catching the breeze. A gentle calm overtakes the courtyard. You sink into the pillows, wondering what your own signature scent might be. You decide on fig leaf and cinnamon. Maybe a little myrrh. Subtle power with a hint of dessert. Evening settles over the city like a silken veil. Shadows lengthen. The stones beneath your feet are warm from the sun, but cooling rapidly. The palace glows from within, lamplight flickering behind intricately carved screens, throwing gentle golden patterns onto courtyard walls. You've found yourself back in the palace's quieter quarters now, where the scent of the day softens into something more intimate. Here, in this hushed twilight space, the Persian elite begin their nighttime rituals. Not with food or drink, but with fragrance. The royal perfumer's apprentice, no more than 15, with ink-stained fingers and a face permanently smudged with crushed petals, guides you through the chamber where the evening blends are prepared. These scents, she explains, are lighter, airier, designed to soothe rather than impress. There are silken sachets to be tucked into bedding, filled with lavender, chamomile, and crushed date blossoms. Pillows are gently misted with rosewater. Even the king's night robes are infused with a barely there aroma of saffron and neroli, so that sleep might come quicker and dreams arrive politely. And here's the real surprise. Every member of the court has their own personalized nighttime scent, logged carefully in bound ledgers by candlelight. You peer over the apprentice's shoulder and see tiny script detailing everything from General Ramin, prefers vetiver and almond, no lavender, to Lady Zareen, rose and honey, but only when rain is forecast. Apparently, meteorological conditions affect olfactory decisions. Who knew? Historians still argue whether this individualized scenting was truly widespread or limited to the most privileged nobles. But you're standing here, beside shelves of personalized oil blends, and it certainly feels real. It's oddly touching, like an ancient form of self-care. As you walk deeper into the complex, you reach the women's quarters. The scent changes here. Florals still reign, but now there's an undercurrent of musk and patchouli, something more mysterious. A servant wafts past with a tray of fragrant teas. Each teacup is rimmed with rose petals. One even seems to glow faintly in the lantern light, infused with saffron. You sip it, and the warmth seeps into your fingers, your chest, your spine. You're not sure if it's the tea or the scent of it that relaxes you more. Suddenly, laughter drifts in from an open window. You peer out and see a private gathering on one of the palace rooftops. A scent game in progress. You're invited to join, of course. In this game, participants are blindfolded and handed different fragrance blends. The challenge? Identify the ingredients and sometimes the wearer. You're hesitant at first, but then you're blindfolded, and a vial is held beneath your nose. You sniff. It's orange blossom, definitely. Maybe cinnamon? A touch of sandalwood? You name them proudly. When the cloth is lifted, everyone claps politely, even if you were way off. Someone gently points out you confused cumin with clove. Easy mistake. As the game continues, you learn that these light-hearted gatherings were actually strategic. Courtiers used them to study one another's preferences, forge flirtations, and occasionally start whisper campaigns. A lingering association. Did you notice she wore the same scent as the queen last night? Could elevate or destroy a reputation. Scent politics, it seems, never sleeps. You wander now into one of the smaller temples within the palace. Here, scent serves a different purpose altogether. Sacredness. Priests light incense meant to carry prayers to the divine. You watch as strands of sandalwood smoke rise in slow spirals toward a high, domed ceiling. The floor is strewn with dried rose petals. You sit cross-legged beside an elderly woman, who leans over and murmurs, "If the gods do not like your scent, they may not listen." You nod solemnly. Seems fair. This belief that fragrance could influence divine perception wasn't limited to Persia, of course. But here it was refined to an art. Specific rituals called for specific blends. Galbanum for protection, spikenard for clarity, and a blend known as heaven's sigh, used only during eclipses. And then there's the funerary rites. As your guide leads you toward the royal tombs, the air grows thick with resin and reverence. Death, you learn, was as scented as life. The bodies of nobles were washed in rosewater, then coated with a thick paste of myrrh and cinnamon. They were wrapped in linen steeped in sacred oils. Even the tombs themselves were designed to emit fragrance for years after burial, ventilated chambers containing slow-releasing incense blocks made of resin, honey, and crushed cedarwood. You pause by one such tomb and press your hand to the stone. It still smells faintly sweet, like an old book left open in a forest. A whisper beside you, "Even in death, we must leave something beautiful behind." You nod, and though you're just a guest in this scented world, you find yourself thinking about your own rituals. What would your burial scent be? Something subtle, perhaps. Sandalwood and orange peel. Or maybe something bold. Like the time General Artabanus reportedly requested his tomb smell of cumin and black pepper. So the underworld knew he meant business. A bit much, maybe. As you drift back toward the main palace, the wind carries a new aroma. One you don't recognize. You ask a passing servant, and she smiles. "Tonight's moon blend. For luck." It's sweet and earthy, with a touch of mystery. Seems about right. The palace quiets as the moon rises, casting a silver glaze over the whitewashed walls and tiled domes. Even the fountains seem to hush themselves now, water trickling with a softer cadence. You're back in your guest chamber, lying on a divan that smells like every dream you've ever half-remembered. Some gentle tangle of cedar, fig, and crushed mint. This is the part of the night when even the ambitious schemers of the court settle down. Well, most of them. There's always someone awake, of course, grinding herbs in a corner room or sneaking a few drops of imported ambergris into the crown prince's bath oil. The politics of scent, you now understand, are never truly at rest. Earlier that day, you overheard a whispered rumor from a kitchen boy. Someone had replaced the Queen Mother's rose sachet with a blend that included, gasp, lavender. The scandal. Everyone knows she despises lavender. The boy hissed. Says it reminds her of rainy days in Sogdia. Whether that's true or simply court gossip, it proves how deeply personal fragrance can be. Tonight, your lesson continues. A scholar has invited you for a private reading in one of the library's outer alcoves. She greets you with a bow and a wry smile. Her robes are dyed with indigo and saffron, and her scent? Sharp, citrusy, bergamot and juniper, you guess. It wakes you up just enough to follow her into the stacks. She leads you through rows of clay tablets and leather-bound volumes. Her torch flickers, and with it, faint trails of incense smoke rise from tiny burners placed in the corners of the room. For bookworms, she says. You laugh until you realize she's serious. Apparently, burning bay leaf and camphor helps keep pests away, and it leaves a rather pleasant smell in the margins. She reads from an old scroll, one you've never heard of, detailing the fragrance map used by ancient Persian diplomats. It's a speculative document, likely exaggerated, but fascinating. It describes how emissaries were trained to recognize regional scent preferences and tailor their appearance accordingly. Visiting Babylon? Emphasize cinnamon and date blossom. Heading to Egypt? Lean into myrrh and lotus. Historians still debate whether this training was truly formalized, but the scroll's existence suggests a surprisingly detailed understanding of cultural olfaction. One passage even describes a diplomatic disaster when a Parthian emissary wore too much musk at a Bactrian coronation. They interpreted it as arrogance. The scroll notes dryly. You smile. Smelling good was one thing. Smelling appropriately was another. You ask the scholar what her favorite scent is, and she replies, the smoke after rain touches cedarwood. You nod. It's oddly poetic. She offers you a tiny vial, a blend she made herself based on that exact idea. You dab a drop on your wrist. It smells like melancholy and morning light. Later, alone again in your chamber, you lie beneath the canopy, staring at the ceiling painted with tiny constellations. There's a breeze tonight, carrying distant temple incense and the faint citrus of a lemon grove. You pull the perfumed sheet closer, breathing deeply. Your mind drifts back over the day. The scent vault, the coin rituals, the perfumed rice, the flirtatious blindfold game. The scholars laugh. The rose-scented tomb. You hadn't expected such complexity, such gentle power in something so ephemeral. There's a sense now that you, too, carry a trace of this world with you. Your clothes hold a memory of it. Your skin, your hair, your dreams. All tinged faintly with spice and story. And now, dear listener, we slow our steps. Let the palace fade. Let the lamps flicker one by one. Let the scent of saffron and cedarwood soften into something quiet and comforting. The night deepens. The air cools. Outside your window, the garden breathes. Fountains whisper. Somewhere far away, a night bird sings once, then stops. You are safe. You are wrapped in silk and scent and silence. Let sleep take you gently now, as it did them, beneath stars painted by hands long gone. Let the air grow heavier, sweeter, and let go.